Maya Rodriguez clutched her portfolio tighter as the subway car jolted to a stop at 42nd Street. The interview at Sterling Tech was in exactly 47 minutes, and she'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Ever since graduating with her computer science degree, she dreamed of working for the innovative tech company that was revolutionizing sustainable energy solutions. Their CEO, Alexander Sterling, was a legend in the industry, a 34-year-old visionary who'd built his empire from nothing. The train was packed with the usual morning rush hour crowd. Maya had managed to snag one of the last available seats, and she was grateful for it. Her navy blue blazer was freshly pressed, her resume printed on expensive paper, and her presentation rehearsed to perfection. She needed this job more than anything. Her student loans were crushing her, and the small web development gigs she'd been taking barely covered her rent in her tiny Brooklyn apartment. As the train pulled into the next station, Maya noticed an elderly man with a walking cane struggling to maintain his balance near the doors. Without hesitation, she stood up and gently touched his arm. "Please, take my seat," she said with a warm smile. The man's face lit up with gratitude as he carefully made his way over. "Thank you so much, dear. These old bones aren't what they used to be." Maya helped him settle in comfortably, making sure he had enough space for his cane. What she didn't notice was the man in the expensive charcoal suit standing just a few feet away, watching the entire interaction with keen interest. He'd been having one of those mornings where everything seemed to go wrong. His usual driver was sick, his backup car wouldn't start, and now he was taking public transportation for the first time in years. He'd been observing the typical subway behavior: people buried in their phones, avoiding eye contact, pretending not to see those who needed help. But this young woman was different. Maya found herself standing near this well-dressed stranger, close enough to catch a subtle hint of his cologne. Something expensive and sophisticated. She tried not to stare, but there was something familiar about his profile. She couldn't quite place it, though. Her mind was too focused on the upcoming interview to dwell on it. She pulled out her phone and reviewed her notes one more time, whispering key points under her breath about Sterling Tech's latest renewable energy initiatives. The stranger couldn't help but overhear her quiet rehearsal. He was intrigued by her knowledge of his company's projects, some of which weren't even public knowledge yet. When she mentioned the Horizon project, their top-secret solar innovation that only his inner circle knew about, his eyebrows raised slightly. This woman had done her homework, and then some. As the train approached Maya's stop, she gathered her things and prepared to exit. In her nervousness, she fumbled with her portfolio, and several papers scattered to the floor. The stranger immediately bent down to help her collect them, their hands briefly touching as they both reached for the same document. The brief contact sent an unexpected jolt through both of them. "Thank you so much," Maya said breathlessly, looking up into the most striking pair of gray eyes she'd ever seen. "I'm so nervous about this interview, I'm making a mess of everything." He handed her the papers with a slight smile. "Sterling Tech?" he asked, having glimpsed the company logo on her documents. Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Yes. How did you know?" He gestured to the papers. "Lucky guess. They're a good company. I'm sure you'll do great." There was something in his tone that made Maya feel oddly reassured, though she couldn't understand why a stranger's opinion would matter so much to her. The train announced her stop, and Maya quickly gathered the rest of her belongings. As she headed toward the doors, she turned back one last time. "Thank you again, for helping me and for the encouragement. I really needed that today." The stranger nodded, watching as she disappeared into the crowd on the platform. He remained on the train for 2 more stops, a thoughtful expression on his face as he processed the unexpected encounter. Maya arrived at the Sterling Tech building 15 minutes early, using the extra time to compose herself in the marble lobby. The 40-story glass tower was even more impressive in person, with its sleek design and the subtle integration of solar panels into the architecture. She'd researched every detail about this building, knowing that Alexander Sterling had personally overseen its construction to make it a showcase of sustainable technology. The receptionist directed her to the 38th floor, where she was greeted by Jennifer Walsh, the HR director she'd been corresponding with via email. Jennifer was a warm, professional woman in her 40s who immediately put Maya at ease. We're so excited to meet you, Maya. Your portfolio was impressive, and your academic recommendations were outstanding. Dr. Kim from MIT had particularly glowing things to say about your work on renewable energy algorithms. As they walked toward the conference room, Jennifer explained the interview process. You'll be meeting with our technical team first, then our project managers, and finally. She paused at a set of double doors. You'll meet with our CEO. He makes it a point to personally interview all potential senior developers. It's unusual, but Mr. Sterling believes that cultural fit is just as important as technical skills. Maya's heart began racing again. She dreamed of meeting Alexander Sterling, but she hadn't expected it to happen today. She'd seen his photos in tech magazines and online, but he was notoriously private and rarely appeared in public. The interview with the technical team went better than she'd hoped. Her years of studying Sterling Tech's methodologies paid off, and she could see the impressed looks exchanged between the interviewers when she solved their complex coding challenges with elegant, innovative solutions. The project managers were equally impressed with her ideas for streamlining their development processes. Maya felt confidence building with each successful interaction. Maybe, just maybe, she actually had a shot at landing this position. When Jennifer came to escort her to the final interview, Maya took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. This was it, the moment she'd been preparing for. Jennifer knocked on the CEO's office door and opened it after hearing a familiar voice call. Come in. Maya stepped into the spacious corner office, taking in the panoramic view of the city and the numerous awards and patents displayed on the walls. Behind an impressive desk sat a figure she recognized immediately, and her breath caught in her throat. It was the stranger from the subway. The man who had helped her collect her scattered papers. The one with the striking gray eyes who had somehow known she was interviewing at Sterling Tech. Alexander Sterling rose from his chair, and Maya could see he was just as surprised as she was, though he recovered much more quickly. Please, have a seat, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His voice was calm and professional, but Maya caught a hint of amusement in his eyes. She sat down carefully, her mind racing with the implications of this revelation. Had he known who she was on the train? Was this some kind of test? She felt mortified thinking about how she'd rambled about her nervousness to the very person she was meant to impress. Alexander studied her for a moment before speaking. I have to admit, this is quite an interesting coincidence. I don't often take the subway, but when I do, I rarely encounter someone who gives up their seat for a stranger without a second thought. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. I had no idea who you were, Mr. Sterling. I hope you don't think I was trying to. I mean, I would never. He held up a hand to stop her stammering. Ms. Rodriguez, what happened on the train this morning tells me more about your character than any interview question could. But let's proceed with the formal process, shall we? The interview that followed was unlike anything Maya had expected. Alexander's questions were thoughtful and challenging, focusing not just on her technical abilities but on her vision for the future of sustainable technology. She found herself relaxing as they discussed renewable energy innovations, and she was surprised by how easy it was to talk with him. His reputation as a brilliant but intimidating CEO didn't match the thoughtful, engaging person sitting across from her. When he asked about her long-term goals, Maya spoke passionately about wanting to create technology that could make a real difference in fighting climate change. I don't just want a job, Mr. Sterling. I want to be part of something that matters, something that my future children will thank me for. Alexander leaned back in his chair, clearly impressed by her sincerity and vision. 3 days passed after the interview, and Maya was going out of her mind waiting for a response. She'd replayed every moment of her conversation with Alexander Sterling, analyzing every word and expression, trying to guess whether she'd made a good impression. The fact that he was the subway stranger added an extra layer of complexity to her emotions that she wasn't quite ready to examine. Her phone rang on Thursday evening while she was stress-eating takeout Chinese food in her tiny kitchen. Jennifer Walsh's voice was warm and professional as always. Maya, I have wonderful news. Mr. Sterling would like to offer you the position of Senior Development Engineer, with a starting salary that I think you'll find very attractive. The number Jennifer mentioned was more than Maya had dared to hope for, enough to pay off her student loans and finally move to a better apartment. But there was more. Mr. Sterling has also requested that you join the Horizon project team immediately. It's our most innovative initiative, and he specifically wants you to lead the algorithm development. Maya's hands were shaking as she absorbed this information. The Horizon project was Sterling Tech's most secretive and ambitious undertaking, a revolutionary solar technology that could potentially change the energy industry forever. There is one unusual aspect to this offer, Jennifer continued. Mr. Sterling would like to discuss the project details with you personally over dinner tomorrow night. He says it's important that you understand the full scope of what you'd be taking on before you make your final decision. Maya's heart began racing again. A business dinner with Alexander Sterling felt both thrilling and terrifying. Friday evening found Maya standing outside Lumiere, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. She'd chosen a sophisticated black dress that was professional yet elegant, and she'd spent an embarrassing amount of time on her hair and makeup. When she arrived, Alexander was already waiting at a private corner table, looking devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored dark suit. He stood as she approached, and Maya was struck again by his commanding presence. "Thank you for coming, Maya. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering wine. I remembered you mentioning your preference for Pinot Noir during our conversation about your time studying in France." Maya was surprised he'd remembered such a small detail from her interview. "That's very thoughtful, thank you." As they settled into dinner, Alexander began explaining the Horizon project in detail. It was even more ambitious than Maya had imagined, a complete reimagining of solar energy collection and storage that could make renewable energy affordable and accessible worldwide. "The technical challenges are immense," he explained, his eyes lighting up with passion for the project. "We're essentially trying to solve problems that the entire industry has been struggling with for decades." Maya found herself leaning forward, completely captivated by his vision. "The algorithm requirements alone would be staggering," she mused. "You'd need to optimize for efficiency, weather variations, grid integration." Alexander smiled at her immediate grasp of the complexities involved. "Exactly. That's why I need someone with your particular combination of technical expertise and innovative thinking." As the evening progressed, their conversation shifted from purely professional to more personal territory. Alexander spoke about his journey from a small-town kid with big dreams to building one of the most successful tech companies in the world. "The hardest part wasn't the technical challenges or the business obstacles," he admitted. "It was maintaining my values and my vision for making a positive impact when everyone around me was focused solely on profits." Maya shared her own story, growing up in a working-class family where her parents had worked multiple jobs to support her education, her determination to use her skills for something meaningful, and her struggles with imposter syndrome in a male-dominated field. "Sometimes I feel like I'm pretending to belong in rooms like this," she confessed, gesturing to the elegant restaurant around them. Alexander's expression grew serious. "Maya, what I saw on that subway train wasn't pretense. It was genuine kindness and consideration for others, qualities that are increasingly rare in our industry. You didn't give up your seat because you were trying to impress anyone. You did it because it was the right thing to do." His words sent a warm feeling spreading through Maya's chest, and she found herself seeing him not just as the intimidating CEO, but as a man who truly understood and appreciated her values. Maya's first month at Sterling Tech exceeded all her expectations. The Horizon project was every bit as challenging and rewarding as Alexander had promised, and she found herself working longer hours than ever before, not because she had to, but because she was genuinely excited about the work. Her algorithms were already showing promising results, and the team was making breakthrough progress. What she hadn't expected was how often she found herself working directly with Alexander. Unlike other CEOs who delegated everything to subordinates, he was deeply involved in the technical aspects of the project. Their late-night brainstorming sessions became a regular occurrence, usually taking place in his office with takeout containers and whiteboards covered in complex equations. During one of these sessions, Maya made a breakthrough that had Alexander staring at her calculations in amazement. This is incredible, Maya. If your projections are correct, we could increase efficiency by 30% while reducing production costs by half. The excitement in his voice was infectious, and Maya felt a surge of pride unlike anything she'd ever experienced. I couldn't have done it without your insights about the market applications, she replied. This really is a team effort. Alexander looked at her with an expression that made her heart skip a beat. You know, when I first built this company, I dreamed of finding people who shared my vision for changing the world. I never imagined I'd find someone who could not only match that vision but exceed it. The intensity in his gray eyes made Maya feel like they were the only two people in the world. Their professional relationship began evolving into something deeper and more personal. Alexander started inviting Maya to industry conferences and networking events, introducing her as his brilliant lead engineer with obvious pride. Maya began to notice the way other women looked at Alexander, and the way he seemed completely oblivious to their attention, focusing entirely on Maya instead. One evening, after a particularly successful presentation to potential investors, Alexander suggested they celebrate with drinks at a rooftop bar near the office. The city lights sparkled below them as they talked about everything from quantum physics to their favorite movies. Maya discovered that behind his serious corporate persona, Alexander had a wonderful sense of humor and a surprisingly playful side. I have a confession to make, Alexander said as they shared a bottle of champagne. That morning on the subway wasn't completely accidental. I'd been taking public transportation occasionally, trying to get a better sense of the average person's daily experience. Our technology needs to work for everyone, not just the wealthy. Maya smiled at this revelation. So you were doing market research? Something like that. But meeting you, that was pure serendipity. As the weeks passed, Maya found herself looking forward to their work sessions with an anticipation that had nothing to do with algorithms or energy solutions. She loved the way Alexander's face lit up when she presented a new idea, the way he listened intently to her thoughts, and the way he challenged her to think bigger and bolder than she'd ever imagined possible. The attraction between them was becoming impossible to ignore. There were moments when their hands would brush while reaching for the same document, or when they'd find themselves standing closer than strictly professional while examining data on the whiteboard. The tension was palpable, but neither seemed willing to cross that line first. Everything changed on a Friday evening when Maya was working alone in the lab, troubleshooting a particularly stubborn piece of code. Alexander appeared with coffee and Chinese takeout, explaining that he'd noticed her car still in the parking garage. You can't solve the world's energy problems on an empty stomach, he said with that smile that never failed to make her pulse quicken. As they worked side by side, Maya accidentally knocked over her coffee cup, sending hot liquid across her laptop and important documents. She jumped up in dismay, and Alexander immediately went to help her clean up the mess. In the process, they collided, and Alexander's arms came up to steady her. For a moment, they stood frozen, faces inches apart, the spilled coffee forgotten. The air between them crackled with electricity, and Maya could see her own longing reflected in Alexander's eyes. This time, neither of them pulled away. The kiss was everything Maya had imagined and more. Soft, gentle, yet filled with months of suppressed longing and attraction. When they finally broke apart, Alexander rested his forehead against hers, his breathing slightly uneven. I've been wanting to do that since the day you walked into my office, he whispered. Maya's heart was racing, but she felt a moment of uncertainty creep in. Alexander, I don't want you to think I'm only interested in you because of the job or the opportunity. He silenced her concerns with another soft kiss. Maya, the woman who gave up her subway seat to a stranger, who speaks passionately about changing the world, who works 16-hour days not for recognition but because she believes in what we're doing, that woman captured my heart long before I knew how brilliant she was at her job. His words melted away all of Maya's fears and insecurities. Their relationship evolved naturally from that point forward. They were careful to maintain professionalism at work, but their personal connection deepened with each passing day. Alexander showed Maya sides of himself that he'd never shared with anyone. His fears about living up to his own reputation, his loneliness at the top of the corporate ladder, and his dreams for a future where technology truly served humanity. Maya, in turn, felt safe enough to share her own vulnerabilities with Alexander. She told him about her struggles with self-doubt, her fears of not being good enough, and her dreams of making her parents proud. Alexander listened with the same intensity he brought to solving complex engineering problems, offering support and encouragement that went far beyond what any boss would provide. The Horizon project continued to exceed all expectations, with Maya's innovations attracting attention from industry leaders and environmental groups worldwide. When Sterling Tech announced the breakthrough at a major conference, Maya stood beside Alexander as he credited her with the revolutionary advances. The pride in his voice and the way he looked at her made it clear to everyone present that their relationship had evolved beyond the professional. 6 months later, Alexander surprised Maya with a romantic dinner at the same restaurant where they discussed the Horizon project. As dessert was served, he pulled out a small velvet box, his hands slightly trembling with nervousness. "Maya Rodriguez, you've revolutionized not just our energy technology, but my entire world. You've shown me that the most important innovations aren't always technical, sometimes they're matters of the heart." Maya's eyes filled with tears as Alexander continued, "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner in changing the world, both professionally and personally?" Through her happy tears, Maya managed to whisper yes, before Alexander slipped the stunning ring onto her finger. The diamond caught the light like a tiny star, but it paled in comparison to the radiance of Maya's smile. Their wedding, held in the rooftop garden of the Sterling Tech building, was a perfect blend of elegance and sustainability, with solar-powered lighting and locally sourced flowers. Maya's parents beamed with pride as they watched their daughter marry the man who'd not only recognized her brilliance but had fallen in love with her generous heart. In his wedding speech, Alexander referenced that fateful subway ride. "They say that success is where preparation meets opportunity. But I've learned that love is where kindness meets recognition." Maya prepared herself with years of hard work and dedication, but it was her natural kindness that created the opportunity for us to find each other. Maya laughed through happy tears, remembering how mortified she'd been when she realized who he was. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Maya reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them together. A simple act of kindness on a crowded subway had led to the career of her dreams and the love of her life. Their story would become legendary within Sterling Tech, inspiring other employees to believe that success could come from staying true to one's values. Years later, when Maya and Alexander would tell their children about how they met, they would emphasize that the most important innovations often come from the simplest acts of human decency. The Horizon project went on to revolutionize the renewable energy industry, but Maya and Alexander knew that their greatest success was the love they'd built together, a love that started with a subway seat and grew into a partnership that truly changed the world.